My device will be an MC3300. This will be my test device, and you'll be able to see my the scripts on the test device through Avalanche remote control. So during the webinar today, I will go through various scripts and show you, talk about those scripts, and then demo those scripts on the actual device. Okay, so let's start off in Velocity Console. Now, many of you, I have made an assumption that many of you will know Velocity, have worked with Velocity, have used the Velocity client on the device, and have also used the Velocity Console on the PC. So first of all, I'm going to start with the first project. So I'll open this project, and in the new version of Velocity, version 2.1.8, you will have noticed that the scripting section has been renamed to Advanced Configuration. So in Advanced Configuration is now where we make our scripts. So what I want to do is I want to first start with a couple of simple scripts, the ones that are most used. The first one being scripts that will activate and run when a barcode is scanned. So, and those scripts can then either change the barcode data before it is sent to the host system. And then we will look at another script for doing the same thing, but when a key is pressed on the device. So in the advanced configuration section, you'll see here I have already put some scripts in this particular project. But if we click on Help in the bottom corner of the Velocity console, this will open up our online help. And here, when I select what APIs are available, here are all the Velocity APIs that I will be looking at today. Now, it's impossible to do all of them in this particular session, but these are the APIs. Some of these APIs I've selected today to give you an example of how they work with Velocity. Now, some of you will know that the Velocity scripting engine is powered by JavaScript. So to create scripts in Velocity, you use the APIs that we have for Velocity and mix those APIs with standard JavaScript. So we chose JavaScript because it's an industry standard language. It's not proprietary, so there are plenty of resources available for JavaScript information. One I use very often is w3schools.com, which gives you lots of examples of JavaScript functions. And it's basically, you can use those standard JavaScript functions in our Velocity scripting and mix those with the APIs that I just showed you. So the first one I'm going to look at is a very useful one, and it's around events. So in Velocity, we have an event handler, and that script is called WL event. So what happens is when an event is created in a script in Velocity, whenever that event happens, that will trigger a function in the script to handle that event. So two I'm going to look at first. The first one is the onScan event. So whenever a barcode is scanned on the device, it will trigger an event, and that event will then be able to capture the barcode data, change the barcode data, and then send the barcode data to the host. And the second one I'm going to look at in the event is the onKey event. So this is an event that will run whenever a key is pressed on the device. So that key could be on the physical keyboard or the virtual keyboard. So two events to look at as an example, and let me show you how these events work. So first of all, we'll look at the scan event. So in the library, you have some scripts that you can use: scan append to append data to the end of a scan, scan prepend to append data to the beginning of the scan, scan replace to replace characters in the barcode that's been scanned, scan strip to strip characters from a barcode, etc., etc. So some scripts that you can use commonly from the library in order to start your changes to a barcode. So let me just delete that one there and just start here. So the first script I'm using is a scan prepend script, because I want to add these three characters to the beginning of a EAN 128 barcode. So a GS1 128 barcode. And I have an example barcode here that looks like this. So I will scan this barcode and show you the results of that particular script. The next script is I want to replace the FNC1 character, or the group separator character, with an @ sign, with an @ character here. So that script will replace the GS character with an @ sign. And then thirdly, I then want to add to the end of the barcode an asterisk or a star to the end of the barcode. And then finally here I have a script that will put the information in a prompt on the screen. Now when you have many scanning scripts in a project, it's important to know that all of these scripts will all trigger when a barcode is scanned. But in order to specify the order of these scripts, it's just a hierarchy. So if I have 4 scripts that will all fire on the event on scan, if I order these scripts from top to bottom, the first one to run will be this script, the next one to run will be this one, and then finally this one. So it will run from top to bottom if we have more than one script that fires on a on-scan event. Okay, so let's have a look how this script works on the actual device, how this project works. So if I go to scan order as my first one to show you. So I'm just using the local Telnet server that runs on the Velocity client on localhost port 2300. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scan that barcode I just showed you to just show you the result of those 4 scripts running together in Velocity. So if I just switch to this barcode, excuse me, and just run my remote control so you can see that. So let me put that there. So now if I scan this particular barcode, is it going to scan? No. Let me just put this out of the way here. Okay, so now I scan that particular barcode, and here's the results of those 4 scripts working together. So here's my barcode, starts with 90, but I have a prepend script that's added the 3 characters, square bracket C run 1 to the beginning. In this particular barcode, there's a GS or a FNC1 character, which we've replaced with the @ sign. And then at the end, we've added a star to that barcode, okay? So those 4 scripts working together have changed the data in the barcode and then sent the barcode, the new format of the barcode, to the host. Now, some of you may have used our library scripts in the past and have wondered why it's not possible to actually specify a GS1 128 barcode in our library script. So just let me give you an example of that. So if I go to library and I want to add a script to strip some characters from the start of the barcode. When I link this particular script to a session and go to symbology, you see here that there isn't an EAN128 barcode available to choose in the list. So what we can do here with the library scripts, and this is important, is we can edit these scripts and we can click on the allowed type parameter. And here we can actually add an allowed type for the EAN128 barcode. So here I can say, this is a GS1-128 barcode, and then it's going to send the value EAN128 when that barcode is scanned. So if I now save that and OK that and then go back, now I have the option to specify GS1-128 barcode. So that's just some information for you. It's important that if you use the library scripts, that you're just aware that it may not be by default that you can select GS1-128 as the barcode type. So that's just showing you how you can add that if it's missing from the library script. Okay, moving on to the next event, which is onKey. What I wanted to show you is just a few scripts around the onKey event. So some of these scripts, again, come from the library. So here is a script that's going to enable key clicks. So in this script, what will happen every time a key is pressed, we will hear a sound, a beep on the device. This script is going to replace the A key whenever the lowercase a key is pressed with a Z key. And I'll show you that working on the device. This script I've developed to actually pop up a message on the screen of the device that will show me the key value that was pressed on the device. And finally, this script will perform a key macro. So when I press F5, and this is the code for F5, what will happen is the key macro will send hi world to the actual telnet session. Okay, so all of these scripts are running on the onKey event. So again, the order of these scripts, because all of them run on onKey, will be from top to bottom. So let's see how this particular project runs on the device. If I switch to my device and just exit my scan order and bring this back here so you can see it in the middle of my screen. Then if I use onKey press, and I'll just bring the device close to my microphone here. So here you hear the key clicks. Hopefully you can hear the key clicks there as I press through. You see the message that's on the screen that's showing me the value of the key that I pressed. Okay. If I press the A key, it's going to send a Z to the host to show you that key replace script working. And finally, if I press F5, so if I go to my F5 keyboard, my function keyboard, and press F5, then it's going to send hi world when I press F5. Okay. So simple scripts that are running on the key event to just give you an example of how those scripts work. Now, if I wanted to replace another value, another key, then all I have to do is just link this script again. So for example, if I wanted to replace the B key with a Z character, then I link this script to session again. So here is replacing A with Z, and then I can just say replace B with Z. And then I can link this script as many times that I need to replace keys. So this is how you can use one script and link it several times to perform different tasks in your project. Okay, let's come out of that one. Now, you may have noticed that when I showed you the on-scan project, there was a debug prompt that appeared on the device. Now, that debug prompt we used recently in a project with a customer because the use case was that the customer wanted to be able to normally scan a barcode, to scan a barcode and send the barcode immediately to the host, but also be able to scan a barcode in debug mode to actually see the value of the barcode before it was sent to the host. So what we developed in this project, using some scripts again, is the ability to specify that the trigger key or the scan key on the pistol, on the handle of the device, when the user uses that key, it will send the data, the barcode data, immediately to the host. But if the user uses the scan button on the physical keyboard on the MC3300 or the MC9300, the yellow key at the top of the keyboard, then that will actually scan, but put the scanner in debug mode so the users can see the barcode that they've scanned before it's sent to the host. So let me show you how this script works on the actual device. So again, the trigger key on the handle of the device will send the data immediately to the host, whereas the scan key on the physical keyboard on the MC3300 or MC9300 will put the scanner in debug mode. So let's just run that scan debug script. So first of all, I'm going to scan a barcode with the trigger on the handle, and immediately you see the barcode was sent to the host. And then I'm going to scan that same barcode with the keyboard scanner button, and you can see here that the barcode is scanned, a debug message appears, and then the user can see the value of the barcode, the type of the barcode, the length of the barcode, and when they press OK, then the barcode is sent to the host. Okay, so just using some scripts in Velocity, we're able to make that debug mode work in a production system. Okay, so moving on. The next one I wanted to just show you is around some scripts that we have developed for the AS400. So 5250 emulation or 3270 emulation. And just to show you how some of these scripts work on the AS400. So I'm going to use the Wavelink AS400 here as this test, as my test system. And if I click on Advanced Configuration, I'm just going to talk you through some scripts that we have here and how these particular scripts will work in this project. So the first script, we're not using this one, but this one will enable free cursor mode. And what that means is that the user will be able to use the arrow keys to move the cursor in various positions on the actual screen. I have a script here called Touch to Activate Field, and I'll show you what happens with that script. Touch to Activate Field will enable the user to just put their finger, press the finger on the input field that does not have focus, and this script will put the cursor in that input field that they've pressed. I have a script here called Ask Workstation ID, and what this script will do is when the session is run for the first time on the device, or the project is executed for the first time, this script will prompt the user or prompt the IT systems person for a device ID. So the device ID will then be sent to the AS400 so that the AS400 can recognize this particular device. Then I have a script here that will handle oversized scanning. So the scenario here is, you may see this with some of your customers. They have a barcode that contains the username and the password. And this is one barcode. So if I was to scan this barcode in a particular field on the AS400 where the input length is 10 characters, what will happen is we will get an error to say that the length of the data is too long for the field. But if we use this script called Oversized Scanning, then what we can do is specify that we want that barcode to be split between 2 or more fields. Okay, so what will happen is some of the barcode will be entered in the first field, and some of the barcode will be entered in the second field. And finally, a script that again runs on the scan event that will send that will add a terminator to the barcode, so that the barcode will be sent automatically to the host. So in AS400, this is a hex value 0A is added to the end of the barcode, and that means enter send in the AS400. So let me show you how this script works will work on the device. So if I choose my AS400 project here, let's let it connect to my, sorry, I think I just selected the wrong one. Let me just select AS400. So this is going to connect to the AS400 at wavelength. But you will see, first of all, what's happened is this script is now running before we've connected to the session, because this script wants the user or the system's IT person to enter the ID for this particular device. So what we can do here, we put a prompt on the screen, and then the user or the IT person can enter the workstation ID or the device ID for this particular device. And when I press OK, it will then connect to the AS400. And now I'm connected to my AS400. And if I go across to the side of the AS400, you will see here, here's the device ID or the workstation ID that was entered with this device. Once I've done that, the next time I connect to this session, because it now knows the device ID, it will automatically connect to the AS400 and send the same device ID that was configured for this device. Okay, so let me show you an example of the scanning script here. So this is a script that will automatically put the user ID and the password for the AS400 and send it to the host. So hopefully, if I show you this and put this to the side here and then scan that barcode, if it's going to scan. Okay, so we scan that barcode and we are immediately logged into the AS400. So what's happened is ROI was put in the user field, then some spaces, and then once Velocity detected that the number of characters exceeded the username field, it then put the password in the password field and then sent the data to the host, and then we can now log in to our AS400. Okay, if I select a function on our AS400, so if I enter number 1 to go into this particular screen, remember I said I have a script that the user can press with their finger on the field and it will move the cursor to that particular field. So here I'm just pressing around and we can go forward or we can go back. So the user is able to just activate the field that they want to put the data in by just pressing their finger on the screen of the device. Okay. So just by using my finger, I can put the cursor in any field on this particular screen. Okay, and that gives you an example of some of the AS400 scripts that we have. Some of them are in the library, but if you need some other functionality, then please feel free to ask us, because we have plenty of scripts for AS400 functionality. Okay, let me move on to the next project. And this project is showing you a recent use case that we had, which in Velocity, we're able to, using this particular script function. So if I go back to my script and this particular script function here, what we're able to do is we're able to detect the data coming from the host system and override that data if we need to, or ignore that particular data. So what happens with a VT emulation server is that it's the host system will send escape sequences to the device. And those escape sequences will initiate some functionality And let me show you an example of this. So here's a escape sequences for VT that will set display attributes on the device. So for example, it can change the foreground color and background color of a particular piece of data that's displayed on the screen. It can make it reverse video, it can make it bright or underscored. So the host will send these display attributes to the device. So in this particular use case, what the user wanted was to be able to set a native theme of a white background with a black text. But what they found is when they actually connected to their host system, because their host system was sending escape sequences to set color attributes, it was actually overriding these particular settings in Velocity. So if I just show you how this works. So I will show you before and after. So this is before we added the script, and this is how it looks on the device. So if I send the screens to the device, you'll see that there's a black text on white background, which is fine. But you will then see on this screen, the host is sending display properties, escape sequences, that's really making a mess of the intended white background with black text. So here we've got some red with some black background, we've got white with black background, and it all looks a bit of a messy screen. So using this, this script, what we're able to do here is we're able to override those VT escape sequences that will set the display properties. So let me show you how that looks after that script is added to the project. So let's send those screens again to my device. So again, we have the black on white, and then when we get to the login screen, it's now much cleaner. So what's happening is those escape sequences that the host is sending are being ignored. And now we have a much cleaner looking screen with just the white background and the black text, okay? So that's how we can use that script called network escape sequences. Okay, let me show you that in the project on the console. So this script function here is providing us the ability to override those host settings. Okay, the next project we will look at is the ability to add a button to the native screen. So let me just give you a bit of background into what we're actually viewing here on the Velocity screen. So if I show you here, what this essentially is, although it looks like a telnet interface, it's essentially a HTML rendering engine that's working here, that's presenting the data like a telnet interface. So because this is a HTML, it gives us the ability to actually insert specific JavaScript functions into the main document object model, or the DOM as you may know it as. So this gives us some really powerful features, and using this particular script API called evaluate JavaScript. Let me just find that one for you. Where is that one? So view.evaluate JavaScript. What we're able to do is execute JavaScript from a Velocity script. We're able to execute JavaScript directly in the document object model. So that enables us to do things like putting buttons on the screen, which I will show you now with this project. So here, let me just close this one and launch the add button. So here you see that using this script, I've put a login button immediately on the screen here. So not with the keyboard, but just a button that will appear on the screen. So here is the script in this project to do that. So we have a script called add button to native mode. and we have some parameters that you can fill in here. So it's you're going to view login as the caption on the button. This is the position of the button on the screen, and this is the macro when the button is pressed. So what will happen is it will put 1, 2 in the user field. It will send a tab. It will pause 250 milliseconds and then put 3, 4 in the password field and send enter. This one specifies the width of the button, and this one specifies the color of the button. And once we use that script, we now have a button that will appear on our screen, in our Telnet native screen. So when I press that button on the device, I automatically log in to the host. So this button, when pressed, sends this key macro, and let me just expand this so you can see this in full, will send this sequence of keys in order to log the user into the device. So just a simple example of how you can use JavaScript, execute JavaScript in the actual DOM that you're viewing here in HTML, and how you can use simple JavaScript button functions to add buttons to the native screen. So going on a little bit further than that, what we can also do is then we can create what we call tap spots. So here we're able to use the button again, but make the button transparent, which will enable us to now, rather than the user having to press 1 and enter on the menu, the user can now just put their finger on the menu and it will execute that particular menu option. So pressing number 2 there then gets me to the storefront menu, and if I press number 2, it will take me further down the menu. So here I'm just created tap spots to enable tap functionality on the screen. Let me just come back to my velocity session. Okay, so just by pressing on the screen, I'll show you with the mouse here. Doesn't work with the mouse, but if I show you with the finger, it will just enable those particular tap spots to be entered. So let me just go back here to my main menu and then go through the menus again. So just tapping on the menus will take me to the next menu or take me to the actual process. So that's how we can use tap spots to touch enable a Telnet green and black screen. The next script I wanted to show you is reading files. So in Velocity, we have an API that will perform a file read. So device read file is the API. And you can specify using this API the file, a text file, on the device that Velocity will read. Okay, so if I just exit this, show you my project. So here the project is called read file contents. And if I look at the script here, what we have is a script that will read some check digits from a file. And the file is located in the com.wavelength.velocity folder on the device. So if I go to my remote control and go to File Explorer, you will see here a file called locations.txt that's existing in my com.wavelength.velocity folder. And if I show you how that project works, so if I run that project on the device, what will happen is that file contains this particular data. So we have a location code and we have a check digit for that location. We have another location code and another check digit for that location. So what happens when I run this on the device is, first of all, we prompt, just to show you the lookup, how the lookup works, we would just show all of the location codes in a prompt. So using a prompt API that's in Velocity, you will see all the location codes appear. And as we select one of the location codes, it will then show us through a toast message the actual check digit associated to that location code. If I go on to the next one, 34, and the next one will be 56, and the next one will be 78. So that's just an example. script that shows you how you can use Velocity scripting to read an external text file and read that data into Velocity and then perform lookups in Velocity on that particular data. Okay. So some of these I've used in the past are for example, looking up login credentials from a file, looking up check digits, as I just showed you, also looking up device ID, workstation IDs. So using the read file API, we're able to do that with an external text file. Okay, moving on to the next project. What I wanted to show you now is some scripts around reading device properties. So these are, in Velocity, we have some scripts that will enable you to look at the IP address of a device, to look at the serial number of a device, to look at the MAC address of a device, and be able to either display that on the screen or use that information to create some other piece of data that contains that information that you might want to send to the host that you're connected to. So just to show you how this function looks on the device here, I have a script that will a project that will execute that script, and again, what we've presented is some buttons on the screen that, when pressed, will give you that particular piece of information. So if I select manufacturer, then it will say the manufacturer is Zebra Technologies. If I select the device model, it will say the device model is the MC33. If I select serial number, here's the serial number of my device. If I select IP address, here's the IP address of my device. And if I select MAC address, here's the MAC address of my device. So each one of these, every time I press one of these buttons in this prompt, it will use one of the scripts that we have here to interrogate that particular device property and display that on a message on the screen. Okay, moving on to the next example I want to show you. And the next example is how we can use Velocity to call other services or other Android applications on the actual, that may also be loaded on the actual device or running on the actual device itself. So this particular project is using some APIs we have that are around launching other services or broadcasting data to other services on the actual device. So what we've developed here with my friends at Zebra in the UK is a demonstration of how Velocity can integrate with the HD 4000 head-up display. Zebra have developed a head-up display service that runs on the device. And I will show you how we were able to send data from Velocity using the action.send broadcast to send an intent to the service that's running, the HUD interface service. So we will send some data from Velocity to the HUD interface service through intent. And then the HUD interface service will then display that data on the HD 4000 glasses. So switching back here, and let me launch Velocity and go to that particular demo. So if I select number 9, intent, if I now go through the application and get to pick to tote, here we have the data that's actually going to be displayed on the HD 4000 glasses. So what's happening here is Velocity is sending through intent, the broadcast intent message, to the HUD interface application, the aisle, the bay, and the level. So this is the location code, And this is how the user will see that presented in their HD 4000 glasses. So I then perform a scan. You'll see that the display on the HD 4000 glasses is refreshed, and it tells you it will tell the location to the user, but it will now display the pick quantity that the user needs to pick at that location. So if we now pick that quantity, again, it will then update the glasses with the new location. Okay, so this demo is available to you. What you're seeing here is an echo from the HUD interface. The HUD interface will echo the data back to the screen, so that if you're demonstrating this with some glasses, people will also be able to see the data that's appearing on the glasses on the actual screen of the device. Okay, so that's how Velocity runs with intent. So let me just stop that service to remove that screen. So that's looked at how Velocity can now start to talk to other applications. And I will show you one at the end of how Velocity is integrated with Zebra's Workforce Connect application. So let's move on to the next project I wanted to show you, or the next functional script, which is about sending data to an external web server, to an external web service. So the scenario here is that as a user is using the application on the device, at certain points in the application or certain checkpoints, Velocity is going to send data to an external web service. So this web service could be somewhere in the cloud. It could be a web service that's recording productivity of the user. It could be a web service that is using some analytics, maybe some information about the battery level and things like this. So Velocity is able to send data to an external web service. So this is using the API we've created called send web request. So here is the information for that API. So what Velocity can do is it can, at certain points, it can send data to this external web service. So to show you this working, what I have is I have a virtual machine here. And this virtual machine is running a web service or a web server that will be expecting data to be sent to that web server. And what I have here is a text file that I'm just put a bear tail on, so I can show you what happens when I run this demo in Velocity. So what will happen is, in certain points of the application, Velocity will send data to this this virtual server I have here on my PC, and you will start to see that data fill up in the text file. So let me just load that particular project, the screens for that project that I need. Okay, and start off there. And let me show you how that now looks on my application. So I'm gonna just organize my screen here a little bit better so you can see what's happening. So if I run project data to web service, and if I send my screen to the device, you'll see now that at particular points in the application, Velocity is sending data to this web server on my virtual machine, and that web server is then putting that data in a text file, but it could be populating a database with dashboards, for example. But the key thing I want to show you here is Velocity sending data to that external web service. Okay, so as the user goes through the application, more and more data is being collected and sent to that web service. So that's a very powerful function called network.sendWebRequest. Okay, so now moving on, and we get to the end of these now. I have just two more, one more actually I wanted to show you on the device. if I go back to the device, and the last one I wanted to show you today is one I've already spoken about when we spoke about the Velocity working with the HD 4000 glasses application, the HUD interface, is how Velocity can also interface with Workforce Connect. So Workforce Connect is a push-to-talk application from Zebra. So here we've integrated Workforce Connect with Velocity, and again we're using the actions, the APIs to send data to Workforce Connect through these intent actions we have in the Velocity scripting engine. So let me show you how that works on the device. So if I select Modern Advanced with Push to Talk, so immediately it runs the Workforce Connect application, so the user can select their channel, can enable the push to talk service. And if I come back to Velocity, you'll see that a Workforce Connect icon will appear at the bottom of the screen here. So what we're doing through scripting is putting the icon on the screen. And once we press, the user presses that icon on the screen, so if I now press that icon, what it will do is it will launch the Workforce Connect application so the user can change to a different channel, and then the user can come back to Velocity and go through their menus, and the Workforce Connect symbol will always be on every screen in the application. Okay, so that just shows you another example of how Velocity is integrating with another application that's running, or another service, application or service that's running on the Android device. Okay, so that concludes what I wanted to show you with scripting and some of the power of scripting and some of the functions in the scripting that really can start you thinking about how Velocity can integrate with various applications. Or let me just put this slide up here. So now with some of these scripts, the network send web request or the scripts to launch other applications, suddenly this gives Velocity the power to connect with many peripherals or processes or other applications that a customer may use in a warehouse. So here we have Velocity is now the central point or the hub, because Velocity is running the actual application that the user is using. But Velocity is able to then connect to glasses. It can connect to remote displays. It can start to read smart tags through you know, IoT and those types of devices. So some of our partners in other countries have integrated Velocity with devices like beacons, weigh scales, several different types of IoT devices that will all send data to Velocity, to the Velocity application. Some partners have also integrated Velocity to be used with to control robots in the warehouse through these APIs that we've developed in the Velocity scripting engine. So so really what's happening here is Velocity becomes the central point, and then it's interfacing with all of these different applications or processes or devices or peripherals in the warehouse. Okay, so that's all I wanted to cover today. I hope you found that useful. There's lots of script options that you can use, but I just wanted to show you some of the simple ones to some of the more advanced ones, and hopefully you found that useful. So back over to Sevi, and any questions, I guess. Okay.
Thank you so much, Ian. Amazing things can be done with the scripts. Yes, really useful practice, hands-on session. And well, we have a couple of questions. One is the device properties can be sent in a field to the host.
Yes, it's possible to do that. You can read the device properties. So for example, here I can read the serial number using this particular function. And then we have another script API called device.sendKeys, which will enable me to actually put that information in the input field as though that information was typed through the keyboard. So device.sendKeys will actually enable that information to be sent to the host. Yes.
Okay, perfect. And the second one is more related to the session itself. Is it possible to get the Velocity projects you showed today?
Yes, I will send. I'll send you.
Send to me then.
Yeah.
And I will forward. Okay.
I will send as many as I can. Obviously, the one that I will not be able to send as a complete demo is the one where we send data to an external web service, because that needs a VM to be running, a web server. But certainly I can send the project so that you will see how that script actually works.
Okay, thank you. So I think there is another question. What was the script to add a scan test pop-up to see the type of code read?
Yeah, so this script, if I go back to the Velocity session, this is a script that we developed for just for debug, and it's a script that I can also make available, and it's called scan test. So when this script is included in your Velocity project, what happens is when a scan is made, the on-scan event is triggered, and then we use a Velocity API for the prompt, and then we put the data of the scan on the prompt. So yes, this script I can make available to you, but when I send you these projects, that script will be included in that project, so you can use that. Okay.
Okay.
It's a very useful script because many of you will have used Telnet CE, Wavelength Telnet CE, where we had the scan diagnostics. So this script is really replacing the scan diagnostics in Telnet CE.
Okay. Okay, and I think there is no more questions. So thank you so much again for your time and for this webinar. And see you later. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Finally, we have now a question pool to the attendees. Tenemos una encuesta ahora de satisfacción, así que por favor la rellenéis. Y muchas gracias por vuestra asistencia. Gracias, Ian. Chao.
Bye.